Okay, and so I just want to quickly comment. I believe this is the birth chart of Jeffrey Epstein for many reasons. I talked a little bit. Jeffrey Epstein has a moon in Aries on the 11th house cusp. So his moon is in Mars, is in Aries disposited by Mars, which is near the midheaven. Also, his sun is in Aquarius, which is in the 8th house, and the traditional ruler is Scorpio, which also rules over sex organs, those things that are taboo. So his Aquarius sun will take on Scorpio traits. Manipulation, the dark side of Scorpio's manipulation, deception, weird sex, and obsessive nature of that. You add that spin with some Neptune with delusion, and that Mars, everything that we strive to become, his moon in Mars, this is always on his mind. I'm not surprised when Jen Lynn Tarot was talking about how he has a sex addiction. He does. Okay. So there's that. So let's go back in time. Let's go through this timeline. This was the death chart for him. Okay, so we know that there were a lot of people involved to pull this off. Epstein is represented by the sun in the chart of death because the ascendant rules him. The co-ruler of the chart is the moon. We also know that the devil was the card of the reading when I did the original Taroscope, which I have here, which I am linking to Saturn. I'm also hearing that someone said, oh, he was dead for an hour or 2 hours. I think that is false, because if that cues people to go look at an hour or 2 hours prior to when he died, they're not going to really see much, in my opinion, because people are still trying to get in position. So at 4:28 a.m., here we have Epstein is asleep. And outside of his cell, now we have this person, Mercury, represented by the Page of Swords. And so these guys, these henchmen, they're kind of getting in place, okay? Venus is on their way to the jail cell. They'll arrive maybe in an hour. Mars. At 4:59 a.m., now it's about a half hour later, Mars now has entered the first house. Mars in the first house is kind of deadly. You don't want to come across a person who's angry who has a Mars in their first house. I mean, think about George Bush with his Pluto in the first house. He liked war. Since Mars now is in the first house, the go time is near, but it's unaspected right now. We have Uranus is now rising more in the 10th house. Remember, the orders came from the opposition, and Uranus was in the 9th house of long distance travel. Okay? So you can kind of see people are starting to get closer into place. Now, this is also a critical moment because Mars is now in the first, Epstein's now in a dangerous setting. 18 degrees, now Neptune, who's the Five of Wands, part of Trump's mini mafia, arrives. And now they're in place where they need to be. In Five of Wands, yes, Jared knows this person. This person is kind of like the master overseer of the operation to make everyone is where they're supposed to be, make sure that it's done, and that they can just get in and get out. This is kind of the person who's organizing it. This location to me is they're in that building somewhere. They're above the street level, kind of like maybe a hidden area, a darker area, but it's kind of humid, like maybe a boiler room. Now we have Venus. This is the second person is aspecting, getting closer to the entrance of the jail cell. Jared also knows this person. From the sense I get is this person is not from the United States. He's more of a Putin guy, and he is a killer. The devil has entered the room. Uranus crosses into the 9th. go time. The opposition has their power to launch the attack. At 6 o'clock a.m., Venus is now in the cell. So now we have Mercury and Venus there with the sun. Epstein is now awake. 6:05 a.m. Epstein is awake. The strike begins. There is definitely a struggle. He can't defend himself. Things are happening. He realizes, yeah, this is life and death, because look at there, he is definitely contained. 6:06 a.m. we've hit the tipping point, because Jupiter is in the 4th house. Mission accomplished. Page of Pentacles is here for him to get paid. The whole shuffle, whatever is happening, the incident, the interaction, that is done. We now just have this guy kind of bearing down. When you have a Sun-Mars midpoint, a person with a Sun-Mars midpoint will do whatever it takes to get the job done. Jeffrey Epstein's Pluto, life-death, is right between there, and the mission is to take his life. And Sun-Mars will not stop until the deed is done. You can even think Venus-Mars, because I know that Jeffrey he's represented by the sun, but his life is being extinguished. His life force is being extinguished. And they're just going to bear down on him. They're just kind of waiting for him to die, because he has no defenses. There's nothing left. 6:19 a.m. It's just a matter of time. He's totally bound. He has his last breaths going. They've got him set up the way they want him set up. Last breaths, because Pluto now has entered the 5th house. Death arrives, and they are pointing to Venus, to the neck, to circulation. He's done. Look at, this is the part of life, is 29 degrees Leo. 29 degrees is an anoretic point. It's a life-taking point. He is dying, or going to be very shortly dead. 6:29. Epstein is dead, but he's found, quote, unresponsive. But Saturn, this person is someone on the inside, and has to do with law enforcement. This Moon and Jupiter, I think that these are probably the guards people that, quote, fell asleep. This Moon is a Queen of Pentacles. This might be a female. Donald's solar return moon now is 14 degrees at the lower heaven. It's all done. On how I found out that the chart that I thought was Jeffrey Epstein's birth chart is in fact his chart, because we determined that Pluto, 22 degrees, Jeffrey's natal Pluto, was the determining factor of his death and time of death. So if we take this chart, the death chart, overlay it, and line it up with his Pluto at 22 degrees, look what happens. The death chart matches the ascendant of his birth chart. Kind of crazy. Life, death, transformation. That's the power of Pluto.